and welcome to another fabulous episode of Thyroid Refresh TV, a podcast dedicated to helping you live a thyroid healthy lifestyle. We're so glad to be back with you again. I'm Danna Bowman.
And I'm Ginny Mahar, and we are the dynamic duo behind Thyroid Refresh and Thyroid 30. We're thrilled to be here today with Jessie Fritz, a Hashimoto's patient and host of the Chronically Healing podcast, to talk about work. There are so many people in this community who are struggling with this. You guys they're trying to uphold employment in spite of a lot of symptoms that can range from chronically challenging to downright debilitating. So we really wanted to interview somebody who was in it, who could offer our listeners real world experience and helpful suggestions for the employed and chronically ill. And Jessie, you were the first person that came to mind because I know you've had to walk this talk as a Hashimoto's patient in the workplace. So we're so excited to hear your input today. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about this very important topic that definitely is hugely impactful on anybody's life that has to work and deal with chronic illness at the same time.
Yes, but before we get started, I want to give everybody a little bit of background about you. Jessie is a chronic illness advocate and empowerment coach, helping women pursue their passions and step into their power. She lives with Hashimoto's and gut issues while also working a full-time job in social media. Through non-toxic products and lifestyle changes, she and her husband are living their lives to the fullest. Woohoo! Yeah. Jessie is passionate about creating positive community in the chronic illness space, which led her to start her podcast, Chronically Healing, in October 2018. And through her podcast, blog, and social media, Jessie works to break the stigma that those living with chronic issues cannot go after their dreams and ambitions. And we are so glad you're doing that because you absolutely can.
Exactly.
Well, we wanted to take a little bit of a different approach today because we put the feelers out for our community about this topic. We wanted to hear from them and what their main issues are with this. And so today we're going to be sharing comments and questions from the listeners. So do you want to maybe start, before we dive into that, Jessie, do you want to start by sharing with us a little about your own journey with trying to find employment that worked for you as a Hashimoto's patient?
Yeah, sure. So, gosh, where should I even begin? I would say like 5 or 6 years ago now, I was working full-time in event planning, and I also had 2 part-time jobs. So I was working probably 65 to 70 hours a week between all 3 of these jobs, plus travel. And I noticed myself just severely declining when it came to my health, how I was feeling, how I was acting in the world. And eventually it came about that I moved to Chicago. I found a new job here because that's when I met my husband. I wanted to be with him. And that's actually when my health took a really big dip. And I actually found out that my hypothyroidism was actually Hashimoto's. So with that, I was working a full-time job. It was a very stressful job. It was account service with social media at a big corporation here. And I had, a 3-hour commute every day. And I noticed myself, as soon as I would start to come out of a flare, just like getting worse and worse. So I ended up finding a new job that I thought it would help. I found a job that was closer to home, so I didn't have as long as a commute. So I thought that was maybe that was the issue. Maybe if I take the commute out, I can work, full-time 40 hours and have no problems. And that's when I started actually at a tech company in downtown Chicago. I thought it would be super fun. I was so excited. And in the 2 years I was there, I went through 3 flares. I was probably the sickest that I've ever been. I had a really, really unsupportive boss. I had a team that definitely downplayed my illness. Anytime I needed to go to the doctor, I was made to feel really bad about it. And it just how I was feeling on top of the not being supported was it was just overwhelming. And finally it got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And I started looking for new jobs, specifically jobs. I thought if I would be remote, it would be helpful with my illness, with just having a little bit more time to myself. But then when I was looking for jobs, it was really hard to find a remote position. So from there, what I did is I found the job that I'm at now. I'm still a full-time social media manager for a startup here in Chicago. However, when I went into the interview process, I immediately told them about my chronic illness, about Hashimoto's. I explained to who would be my new boss, the different symptoms that I dealt with, how often I normally went to the doctor, the types of things that were really helpful to me. And I mean, in the interview process, I was very open about it. I told them that I was looking for a company that would be supportive of that. And I'm so happy that I did, because they're extremely supportive of it. They never have any issues when I need to be out for the doctor, or when for example, I'm working from home all of this month to try it out. And they were super supportive of that as well. So that's kind of like the quick story of what I did, but I'm really glad that I was open and honest with them in the interview process, because I think it set me up for a much better successful time with them. They knew right away what was going to be happening and what was important to me. And what would make me want to work with them was the fact that they would be supportive of me and my personal life as well.
You leveled the playing field, right? You set up expectations for both sides, and that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. And you got to redo, right? You got to start over with a clean slate. Scenario one, here's what not to do. And I totally crashed and burned, and then had this opportunity to start over and said, this is how I'm going to do it differently this time. And you did that. And that's what I think is so cool about your story. And you talk about this, I've heard you talk about this on your Instagram stories and on your podcast. And I appreciate that, because, this is real life. We're real thyroid patients. We are trying to walk our talk here. And so that's why I think your input on that is so valuable. I wanted to share something from one of our community members, Melissa G. And this is something Danna and I can relate to 100%. She says, I became a self-employed freelancer due to the fatigue, extreme anxiety, heat and cold intolerance, and period pain issues that can arise from hypothyroidism. I had to change my life to cope. Now I design websites around my own schedule. Sometimes I work in the evening to account for a long afternoon nap. Sometimes I work on a Saturday to compensate for a low energy day earlier in the week. Previous employers were not understanding at all and added to my stress, exacerbating my symptoms. I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to work my own schedule. I don't know how I would have survived otherwise. And I know I take this for granted with our work. And I mean, we're working a lot, and that, the downside of being self-employed and working at home is that you feel like you're always at work. It's more of a 24/7 feeling, but that flexibility to work around the ups and downs of having a chronic illness has been really helpful for us. And I know another member of our community, Erin S., added, health in the workplace needs a makeover. So yes, Jessie, that's what I want to ask you. How can we improve health in the workplace? How can we make this better overall? Just not just for the thyroid community, but in general.
Yeah, I think the whole statement is so important. And actually, if I'm honest, my true goal is to work for myself, is to have that full flexibility of my own schedule. But for me, I just wasn't there yet. And I was pushing myself to start this business, and I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And I was pushing myself to do all this, which was just making me not even excited to start it anymore. And so for me, I needed to take a step back from that, realize that is my long-term goal. But right now I just needed a position that I would love and that would support me in the meantime. So to kind of answer the rest of your question about the health in the workplace. So for me, I think it's twofold, at least in my experience. So I think people, and I understand this, I was this way too until my last position. I think people are afraid to tell people about their illness. I think they're afraid to walk into an interview and tell someone like, hey, I have chronic illness issues. I have chronic pain. I have days where I need a little bit more support. But I don't think that people are remembering. And it took me until I was, treated awful at a previous position to realize like, hey, I need to like my job too. I need to be supported too. When I'm going into the interview, I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me. So going into that and being like fully transparent. I mean, you don't have to give them your whole life story if you don't want to, but being transparent about the things that you want and what you're looking for, I think is really important on the patient side. And then on the workplace side, that's a little bit harder. It's kind of hard to change things when you're not the one that's running the business or starting the business. I think for me, I was lucky. I went into this position with a CEO that also had a chronic illness. So he understood to a point, like how that could affect you and the types of doctor appointments that you might have to go to, things like that. But then also my boss, I think, did a really good job. She really wanted to work with me. We really wanted to work together. We jived really well. And so she took the time to understand where I was coming from. So she would ask me about my illness. She did a little bit of research on her own end to understand it a little bit more. And I mean, the best boss I've definitely ever had. So it might not be easy to get all of your bosses to do that. But I think just is being as transparent as you possibly can and opening that up where if people have questions or if they're like, I feel like you're going to the doctor a lot, they feel that they can come to you and ask you about that, and that it'll be a conversation you can explain to them, like how you're feeling. So I think that just transparency on both ends is really important. And just, I personally feel the more supportive a business is in general of their employees, the more open they would be to employees that need a little bit more support, need a little bit more work from home time or time off, things like that. So I think when you're looking for a position, like really looking into the type of environment it is and the type of culture that it truly is. Because I think culture, there's like some companies think that a culture is one way, and then there's the actual culture. So like if you can, talk to people that work there. Yeah, exactly.
I also think awareness, to us talking about it, us being on podcasts, us sharing this message, awareness is going to help companies start to realize that the whole, work till you drop thing is really not serving the American people. And I do believe there's been a shift. I believe that people are understanding. A lot of it probably does come from CEOs who are, can't push the way they used to. And, I think maybe a lot, years ago, 30 years ago, it would come out in the form of maybe like a breakdown. Like people would have like a nervous breakdown is what they called them, and those kinds of things. I think it came in that way. I think now it's popping up more in chronic illness. People are showing their fatigue and that kind of stuff. And so I think it's surfacing, and I think that employers are starting to realize. I also think that if they start implementing some healthy habits in the workplace, that would be very, very helpful. Doing, including something like a Thyroid 30 program for their patients and employees and things like that. Lifestyle support, creating that atmosphere of active, stand-up desks, and pads underneath your feet for the stand-up desk, not just the stand-up desk, just some things like that. Creating awareness, I think would do us all a big service. But it's, getting there, we're in that place. But I do think that most companies are a lot of companies are starting to catch on.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot too, especially working in Chicago. I feel like it is a very fast-paced, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of brand new startups and businesses and things like that. So a lot of companies are offering things like unlimited vacation. They're offering work from home packages. They're offering the stand-up desks or just different
gym memberships.
Yeah, exactly. Just different things that aren't your typical like 2-week vacation and health insurance. Like, yeah, that's great. And I'm appreciative of that. But like, we're at a point where not everyone wants to work their life away. So like you want people to come in and do their best while they're there. So how can you then support them outside of that so that they want to keep coming back and they want to keep providing like the best work possible while they are there?
You know, we have that vision, or I do. I just watched the show with my daughter not too long ago, The Devil Wears Prada. It's a fictional story, you know, but it's based around working in the fashion industry in New York. And so that's, you know, my take on the extreme, you know, where they just work. And they're, you know, helping, you know, the CEO or whatever, and they just never sleep and they're always on call. And I think that, you know, may have been true for lots of people 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago. But now I think that people really do get it, and self-care matters. And I think that word is getting around. You know, it's a buzzword, but I think it's getting to the upper management people. I think they're starting to understand that happy and healthy employees are good employees.
Yep. Yeah. Totally.
Well, and I feel like more employers are realizing too that, you know, healthy employees are better employees. And a lot of times the 80, 90-hour work week is counterproductive to productivity, you know, and I get it. I mean, I'm a business person. I grew up in a family business. I went to business school. I understand a lot of businesses, especially in the private sector, are really in a vice to make ends meet and to provide those jobs. I get that. But there's also, I think this, you know, a lot of those ideas that we're undoing now as part of, as Danna pointed out, the dialogue. There's the little dialogue between us, our families, our coworkers, our potential employers in the interview. Then there's the bigger dialogue like we're having right now of just spreading ideas and sharing our experience and having a voice in the culture and saying, look, this isn't working. There's more and more health issues. This isn't going away. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And we got to change things. So, you know, yeah, you made some great points, Jessie. Be transparent. Know that when you're in that interview, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. If you are employed, try to begin and maintain an open dialogue about, oh, this is what's going on. And, you know, so that it's not this weird, awkward thing. And also assess the true environment and culture of the business, because can be pretty easy to suss out when you talk to current employees. Hey, how do you like working here? What are the hours like? How are they about vacation time, sick days, things like that? You know, are they flexible? And I think that can be very helpful for people who are evaluating employment. And I wanted to share this from Heather. We kind of answered this question already, but she said, I don't feel comfortable talking about these issues like exhaustion, headaches, joint pain, fatigue, for fear of seeming weak.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that is a very relatable and difficult thing. I know I felt that one in the gut. You know, you just, you don't want to seem needy or high maintenance. And so you don't speak up, and it ends up, that one can really bite you in the rear, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, like I said, I was working as many hours as I possibly could. I wanted to make as much money as I could. I wanted to prove myself, and I wanted to show myself. And my body literally was like, nope, like we're done. We can't do this anymore. And I was so sick for a year and a half, honestly. And it affected my personal life, my relationships, my everything. And it got to the point where I was like, all of this is because I'm not speaking my truth, because I refuse to stand up for myself, and I refuse to think of myself as the most important person that I need to take care of. And it got to the point it got to the point where I was like, if I'm at a position where I don't feel comfortable talking to my boss about all of these things, I don't feel comfortable telling other people that I work with how I'm feeling, it just wasn't right for me anymore. And I took that as like, okay, now I need to find a place where I can do that, where I do feel comfortable. And I think that's why it's easy. I'm not that everybody can like jump up and quit their job today, but like, I think that's why it was easier for me. I had that realization, and then I moved into a new position and I went into it immediately transparent. So I wasn't having to like create this new culture with my boss or create this new like, way of speaking to her. I tried, and I realized that she just never was going to support me the way I needed. And that for me was kind of it. Just like in a relationship, just like in a friendship, I was like, I don't deserve to be treated this way. I deserve to be supported. And I think it all comes down to remembering that you're not a burden. You're not a diva because you need support in different ways than other people do. That doesn't make you wrong. That doesn't make you a bad person. And therapy helped me with that one. But then just like, for me, again, hitting rock bottom with my health, I was like, I don't have a choice anymore, and I'm choosing me.
Mm. But you think about those people that are out there that are in their job, that are listening right now, that want to open the dialogue.
Yeah.
And you can feel how scary that might be.
Yeah.
Because what if they open the dialogue and then it bites them in the butt? And so know going in that you're going in speaking your truth. Mm-hmm. You're going in speaking your truth, whatever comes. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, then I do think you should open the dialogue. If you can't, then you need to reevaluate some things, because someone may be in what they dreamed of as their dream job or their perfect job or whatever. They just can't all of a sudden keep up. And that's going to be a big thing to swallow when they have to make that decision. They have to walk out the door. They have to say, it's me and this, or I can't do it. So.
Well, and Jessie makes a good point about that begins with the personal inner work of believing that you're worthy. I mean, we talk about this all the time, the healing journey. We see so many people who are stuck because, at the root of it, they don't feel like they're worth the effort, which is really sad. I know that's not like a conscious thought we have necessarily, but a million reasons why I can't make myself a priority and my health a priority. And I just want to share this follow-up comment and maybe a word to the wise. This is what can happen when we don't speak up for ourselves at work. Holly E. shared, I lost my job because of hypothyroidism. My body was too stressed and was getting severely worn down. She had a major health issue that required surgery. Now she says, I'm a stay-at-home mom and can't work at 34 years old. If I would have known what the changes were in my body, I could have worked to the standard that my body could handle. She says, take care of yourself, in caps, before others at your job. I should have.
And that should sit, with everybody. I mean, hear that message, 34.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I feel like there's a movement, a couple of different shifts going on, but we are women. Hear us roar. I feel like people are starting to realize they have to step into their power. They have to speak their truth. And, too late for her on that particular job, poor Holly, but maybe moving forward, feel how much stronger she would be if she can get there, I really feel like it's something that we really all as women have to come together. Of course, men too, but I feel like as women, we have to come together and lift everybody up and say, look, we can do this. We can stand up for ourselves.
The number one complaint from our community about this issue of how chronic illness, chronic thyroid issues of some sort have affected you in the workplace was fatigue. Aaron O says the exhaustion and frequent brain fog makes it extremely hard to focus. And then you feel really stupid when you can't remember something or have to ask the same questions over again. We got a few comments like that. People sharing embarrassing stories about somebody said they put diesel in the work vehicle.
Oh no.
And, and just things like that can be so frustrating with this fatigue and brain fog. Sylvia P says every day is a challenge due to the chronic fatigue. So Jessie, what are your workarounds when it comes to fatigue? This is a big, thyroid, it's all about energy, right? So yeah, a lot of people dealing with fatigue out there.
Yeah, for me, I think that having a job, again, where I feel supported is helpful. It's an energy. I don't feel like I'm going to go in and I'm going to be bombarded. I don't feel that anybody has any ridiculous expectation on me, which is helpful just in its own right. But for this, with the fatigue thing, a lot of what I've had to do is outside of work. It's all of the other work that you have to do. So everybody's healing journey is different. So this is just mine. But for me, I'm still figuring it out. Some days I feel better than others. Some days my brain is going and some days it's not. If you have ever listened to my podcast, there are plenty of times where I'm like, what question was I going to ask? I totally forgot. So I think that having the willingness to give yourself grace in those moments when you are in the middle of a client call and you forget their name, because I've done that. The willingness to put in the work outside of work. So for me, getting a lot of sleep, again, I understand everybody's healing is different, but for me, 8 hours a lot of times isn't enough. So sleeping in when I'm able to, going to bed a lot earlier, understanding the way that I sleep. So I'm a very light sleeper. So learning different things that I can do for that, so that when I do wake up and I do go to work, I have some time to kind of get ready for it. So for me, even like my commute, I changed my commute up. Now I'm living outside of the city, which has helped me a lot with energy pulls, because living in downtown Chicago was just too much for me. So now I live outside of the city, but my commute is longer. So I work from home a couple of days a week, and I take the time when, thankfully, I can take the metro to work, which is like a commuter train. So I can take that time to really just rest. I can listen to a podcast. I can just chill out. I understand not everybody can do that. But that's a way that has been really helpful for me. And then when I am done with work, I leave work. So I try not to think about it. I try not to log in. I try not to do anything of that sort. One thing that I still really struggle with is actually taking my lunch break. So I get a lunch break, but you don't really have enough time to leave the office, things like that. So I tend to just sit at my desk and continue to work. But what I've gotten better at is I started bringing my journal with me to work. So I would go and sit in a different room, or I would go take a walk outside or something, and I would do a little bit of my journaling in the middle of the day, because then I wasn't having to get up earlier to do the journaling. So it kind of helped with a little bit of that too. But I think with fatigue, like, I don't want to ramble too much, but there's so much that just comes with other parts of your healing journey that can make it a little bit more manageable while you're at work. And, like for me, a lot of my fatigue issues aren't even all wrapped into my thyroid issues. A lot of them are wrapped into my gut issues. So continuing to work on that stuff is really helpful, and is continuing to just make me feel better. Does that answer the question? I feel
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And you make some really good points, and it made me realize or think of something. When you are in this interview and you are being transparent, maybe you could say, and I need these things, and this is what, let's be expectations on the same level, but also these are the things I'm doing behind the scenes. These are the things I'm doing to take care of myself so that I can be the best when I'm on for you. So I am getting self-care. I pay attention to my sleep. My room has dark blinds. I go to bed at 11, whatever it is that you've done, the work outside the work, tell them, being transparent about that, so that they know all the steps that you're doing to really, thrive when you get there.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. I know, the willingness to put in the work that happens outside work, that's such a good point. And it is, we want to compartmentalize things and say, it's just a thyroid issue, or this is just a gut issue or a hormonal issue. And, the fact of the matter is it's all connected, right? And, yes, I've dealt with a lot of gut issues as part of this. It's sort of a chicken and egg thing with my hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, and the gut thing has severely affected my fatigue. And in finding the right doctor who did not, finally, after 4 years, did not dismiss my symptoms and said, no, it's not normal for you to feel tired all day, every day at 39 years old. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's deal with this, and did the testing, found a gut issue. We treated it. I got my energy back within like 48 hours, but that wasn't the one thing. That was one of many things, in addition to doing micronutrient testing and taking the right supplements and cleaning up my lifestyle, going to bed on, prioritizing bedtime, prioritizing that sleep, that rest, reevaluating the way I was approaching exercise, and really just switching it to a less is more mindset and honoring what the feedback my body was giving me. I changed my diet. I mean, these are all the things that we have wrapped up in what we do with Thyroid 30, with what we call the 8 daily rituals. And that's the reality, I think, for any healthy lifestyle, especially ours is, specific to thyroid patients. So I think that's a very good point, is there's the workarounds, but then there's also the work that can prevent you from even having to do the workarounds. Mm-hmm. Don't just add more caffeine to your day. Let's get the right health care. Let's look at your medication. Have you had your levels tested lately? All those things are so important. So.
And Ginny, you brought up some really great points about all the things that you're doing, but she didn't do that all at once. It does take time. So for those of you that are out there listening that are thyroid patients, and it may seem overwhelming, please don't let it, because that is a process that you go through. You learn those things as you go. You do not do all of that overnight. We did build Thyroid 30 to help with manage those symptoms, which I feel really proud about doing, because if I'd have had Thyroid 30 back then, I would have hopefully been a little further along on my journey. But it's a lot of information, but it can be doable and bite-sized, and it's progress, not perfection. So I just wanted to mention that.
And we're not promising anyone 30 days and you're fixed and you've got your whole lifestyle. Here's a 30-day opportunity to make a change, surrounded by other people who are on this shared journey of having thyroid issues, and they're dealing with these issues at work. They're dealing with issues in their family. They're dealing with the symptoms and trying to overcome them and bring that self-awareness, gather information. They're working with their doctors at the same time. Maybe they're implementing a protocol their doctor has created for them. So everybody's got their, what's your number one issue right now is the first question, I think, for all of us on this healing journey. But it's a big circle, right? And it all circles back around to what do you need, not just at work, but what does your body need? And all those things. Yeah, listening to that. Erica, this is our last comment from a member of our community. Erica said that in the process, she said, I'm in the process of changing my career largely due to my thyroid, but I have cut my hours way back. And Jessie, in your opinion, do you feel like we should work less if that's something that's feasible for us as thyroid patients?
I think that is all very personal. It kind of depends on each person's journey. Personally, if I could work less, I would. I definitely would. So for me, I'm unable to cut my hours, but what I am able to do is be flexible with where I'm working. So I am able to work from home a couple of days a week, hopefully eventually full time, but currently just a couple of days a week, which is really helpful for me. It cuts out that commute. It allows me to make my own food in my own kitchen. It allows me to turn off my computer at lunch and actually like pay attention to what I'm eating at home. So that's really helpful. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that you're financially able to do, that you're that fits into your lifestyle, that fits into what your job is okay with, then yeah, if you're able to do that, especially even if it's temporary, actually, even if like, say you're going through, maybe you're doing like a big diet change or something and going through like, what am I trying to say? Like a diet that you have to go through, and those can be really difficult at first. So sometimes
like an elimination diet or something.
Yeah, there it is, yeah. Elimination diet.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're able to cut your hours a little bit during that time, or something like that, where you're able to kind of treat your body, and be helpful to yourself. But yeah, honestly, yeah, if I could cut my hours back, I definitely would. But for me, I'm not able to, so I do what I am able to do.
That's perfect.
Well, this has been such a juicy conversation, Jessie. Was there anything else you wanted to add for the listeners, or maybe some main takeaways from today for everyone listening?
Sure. I think, I think I've mentioned this while we were talking, but just, it takes a lot of work, and I'm 31, I'm just getting there, but really truly believing that you are worth it. You are worth people's time. You are worth people's energy. You are worth being supported at work, in relationships, in friendships, in anything, and really being able to trust yourself and support yourself. I think that in the end, that's what you have, is yourself. And if you can stand up for yourself and you can put yourself in a situation where you feel supported, I think that honestly, some of that fatigue might go away. Some of those symptoms might go away just because of the energy that you're putting out and the energy that you're getting back. So just support yourself and don't be so scared to let people in and let them know what's going on. You'd be surprised how many people would be willing to support you.
I love that. And I think that's a great note to end on, that, you can feel better just through the act of speaking your truth. I mean, we have to speak up for ourselves, whether it's in the doctor's office or at work or with our families, or even just the way we speak to ourselves, because nobody else is going to do that for you, and we have an opportunity to. We have the power, right, to make those changes, and they're worthwhile, and you're worth it. And, you can do things to make this better for yourself. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Jessie. For our listeners, you can find Jessie Fritz on Instagram at chronically.healing, or in iTunes, you can search for the Chronically Healing Podcast. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Thyroid Refresh TV, where we give you the inspiration and information you need to live thyroid healthy. You can receive a free Thyroid Thrivers grocery guide by visiting thyroidrefresh.com and joining our mailing list. And to learn more about Thyroid 30, our revolutionary 30-day wellness adventure, you can go to thyroidrefresh.com/thyroid30. You do have the power to heal, and we have the tools.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast and would like to help us continue inspiring and empowering thyroid patients worldwide, please leave us a review on iTunes. It would make our day. You are what makes this community the amazing resource that it is, and we so appreciate your listenership and your support. We're Danna and Ginny, wishing you the best of health, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
See you next time.